Very cool.
What's up, everybody, man? Hey, so going live on Instagram for the very first time today. I say
Yeah.
today, very first time ever. Joined with, and I say joined. It's not joined. You saw the graphic, man. It is with Ron Ortiz and Kyle Ship. Ron was saying earlier that he wished he still looked like that. Say, you know what, buddy? In my heart, in my mind, you still do, dude. So, Ron, how's it going today, Bubba?
Good, very good. Yeah. Kind of taking it low. We've had a little bit of sickness going through the house and stuff, and then we kind of started a gut cleanse type thing. So the activity's been at a little bit of a lull, but I'm still trying to get stuff in occasionally, but not going to the gym, not doing that stuff. So it'll be interesting. The Open will be interesting this year for me.
Dude, I think the Open's going to be interesting for everyone this year, as I know
Yeah.
we've got plans on chatting about that today. As
Mhm.
okay, so for those of you that are listening, you can hear my dogs. I'm sorry, they're in the other room, but I've got a Great Pyrenees. She's a sheepdog. Now I don't live anywhere near sheep, but she's got the background of a sheepdog, and so anytime she hears a bang outside, she thinks it's a wolf coming to get her sheep, and she's going to go nuts. So I will mute my mic as often as I possibly can while we're kind of working through this. But like I said, on Instagram Live for the first time, and of course that would be the day that my dogs are going nuts, but on Instagram Live for the first time, if it doesn't work, I'm sure there's a joke about masters and technology in there somewhere that I'll
Yeah.
try to avoid making as much as humanly possible. But
Cool.
hey, welcome Masters Fitness Championship podcast with Kyle Ship and
Very
Ron
cool.
Ortiz. Dude, Ron, I'm glad you're feeling better, man. I didn't know that you were
Yeah.
not feeling well, man.
Yeah. We were a little under the weather. We actually we got back from our trip to Arizona, kind of head into work, doing all that. Again, the nature of the beast. I'm a firefighter, paramedic, so I'm around sick people a lot. And a couple of the guys came in and they weren't feeling well, and it spreads throughout everything. Sad thing is that Jess now has it. So, but we're doing better. I mean, honestly, it's just a upper respiratory, simple thing. But like I said, we've been kind of like associating that with like, just all the stuff. It's been chilly here, and I know I'm not trying to say, but chilly here is like 40 degrees. It's like, oh my god, the world is ending. But yeah, so it doesn't help much, but at the same time, I guess it's relative. We're used to like 80 degrees and sunny and shiny. So
Dude, hey, weather is always relative, man. I mean, that's the deal.
hmm
It's my friends that live up north, they talk about it being hot in the summer and it's like 85. And I'm like,
hmm
bro, you ain't hit 110 yet. You don't count. But for them, that's
hmm
insanely hot. And so for guys like
yeah,
you and me, man, hey, when it's 55 degrees outside, it's chilly.
yes, absolutely. And that was one of the things I've always thought about as an athlete, thinking about time zones and where you're working out and elevations and all of those things. And I've always felt like I had a teeny bit of an advantage going into like Wisconsin and into California, because it's so blazing hot here during the summers. And I was working out during the summer, it get well over 97 degrees with like 80-90% humidity, and you're working out in that, and you kind of become accustomed to that kind of feel. So when you go out to California, again, it's like 72 degrees. You're walking around with a sweater on, but competing in that weather is just amazing. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it definitely is one of those things that is, as an athlete too, you think about and you're like, you know, even we talked about a little bit last week where they're going to be located now for the Masters and for us competing. I don't know if a lot of that's going to be inside. It seems like it would be, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, look at you with the professional segue
Yeah.
into the Masters, man. No, but for real though, you're absolutely right. I think so. So I mean, let's just jump right into it. Talking
Mhm.
about Birmingham.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting. You and I were on 2 weeks ago on that Thursday when the announcement
Mhm.
first came out. So you and I hopped on and we had a chat, and I think we were both doing our best to temper expectations, knowing that we didn't know a whole lot. We didn't know the reasonings behind a lot of things.
Yes.
I feel like we did a pretty good job of not horribly overreacting.
Yes.
But we heard, this is the deal though. So then the next day we saw some interviews come out. Last week we had Jason Grubb on. Unfortunately, Ron couldn't be with us because Ron was out fighting fires, saving the world, doing his jumping through walls and saving kitty cats and all that stuff. So
yeah, right.
And so got a chance to hear, about timings and things like that, sometimes timing just, they didn't have a lot of time. I think they've been pretty open about the fact that they had, I think they were talking maybe 6 months. And this is all what I've heard from Jason and what I've heard from some of the podcasts. So please know I'm not, I'm not in the know of those things. Like I don't have that level of clearance. So I'm just kind of repeating what they said. And so, it wound up on the same day as the teens. And quite frankly, for those of us that live in Florida and Texas, Ron, it wound up on the same day as the opening day of or opening weekend of college football season.
It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we had talked about, and you think about a little bit more as a person that's participated directly in competition. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting too, as far as volunteers. It's so close to where we're at too. It's only a couple weeks out, and a lot of these volunteers, like we were speaking to some friends, and they volunteer for a lot of different competitions, and a lot of them are not paid, and they don't even get their hotel paid for. They're showing up and they're getting a t-shirt and tennis shoes is their bag of clothing that they get. And that's it. A lot of them aren't even getting a bag full of any goodies or anything like that. And, I don't know how you do that. I admire them and I appreciate them, because I've said from day one, if we didn't have them there, it would be a giant shit show, for lack of better terms. And to have the volunteers that are all, watching us do our reps and counting everyone, to the guys that are putting all the plates out there and all the weights out there that we need and dusting things off and doing all of that, it kind of goes unnoticed, but that is like the lifeblood of what we do in competition. Saying that, those people are going to be stretched so thin that whole month. They're going to be there for the Open earlier on, and then they're going to be there for the Masters, and have to be now split between Masters and teens. And then after that, there's a whole bunch of other competitions occurring. Ours is happening. Wodapalooza is happening. It's just like Rogue is a few weeks later. It's like the volunteers are going to be spread very thin. And again, if we're looking at that as the lifeblood of what we do, granted, the athletes are always there and they're always included in that. But those people that help us put it on, without it, we've experienced that a couple times in MFC, where we had a lack of staffing, and it really makes for a very difficult and sometimes not a real pleasant, experience.
Yeah. Well, you talked, so you bring up MFC. It was one of the really awesome things that happened last year. Is I thought, man, it seemed like, and here's the deal: is I was not on staff before last year, but man, they really did a good job of trying to address volunteers and address judges and really make it a priority. Not that, and I think that's the thing, is not that it hadn't been a priority before. I just think that they addressed it in a different way to really let people know the value that they held. Mm-hmm. I thought it was awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting. So it's funny, Ron. So I love you, and I love agreeing with you. Let me disagree with you a little bit. So I was thinking about this. You're right. So I think on that weekend itself, specifically, it's difficult because they have to split. But let me say this. I think that for the people that really love doing that, I think it's almost like vacation season. Now, doesn't mean that they can do it every single weekend. Doesn't mean that they can hop on the plane and go to Alabama and then go to California and then go to Indiana. And so, I think for organizers, there is a certain level of stress that is like, okay, how are we going to make sure we handle this? Right. Which, again, I think that just forces us to be better. I think it forces us to be more proactive. It forces us to be better about, and here's the thing, competition too, it pushes you to be better. And so like if maybe we're not competing with someone immediately on the same weekend, but we're just talking about time in general. What are we going to do to make it such an amazing weekend for you that you're like, dude, I have to go back to that?
Right. Yeah,
And
I agree.
yeah, and I think that because I mean, dude, you talk about the judges and the volunteers that I interacted with at MFC last year, which I mean was a ton of them.
Hmm.
Dude, they loved it. It was so much
Hmm.
fun for them, and I think
Hmm.
that's a fun thing that I think we can really build off of with everything going on during the off season.
I agree. Our team of leads, and I'm going to kind of like toot our own horn. We had a team of leads last year that are like CrossFit Games leads. Those people came in because they love Masters so much and they want to see a good event. And we were very fortunate, and we've grabbed a lot of those same leads this year. But we still need, you still need the Indians. You need all of the people that are going to be the judges and the people who help set up and tear down and,
Oh yeah.
wipe things off. And then we need the medics. And we've already kind of grabbed a hold of a really good group that does medic stuff. We realize the importance of that from last year. And so it's really important. And what we want to do is we want to show our appreciation, not at the end of the competition, but during the competition by providing them with good meals, providing them with places to stay, and that all takes like finances. And that's, part of, a little bit of what we were discussing prior to coming on today is finances and competition and what it looks like for the games this year and what it looks like, we're hoping this year for MFC, we're going to be able to provide those things and really make it worthwhile for these people to come and help out, and saying this, I'm kind of throwing out a little bit of a, hey, anybody out there that is a meal truck or these companies that we invite you to call us and go, hey, we'd like to help you with the meals for these people because we want to make sure they're fed well, that they're ready to go and they're prepared and on the floor. And, I can't tell you how much we appreciate those people here at MFC, but at the same time, even at the games and at these other competitions, I just hope and pray that they're taking heed of that and they treat them well. Cause I've seen sometimes where they're not treated very well.
Yeah, well, and I'd say it's going to be interesting too, because I think you look at the games. So for anybody who's ever been to the games, whether it be California or Madison or whatever, there's so many people there, and so obviously there's a lot of vendors and there's a lot of opportunities for everybody. So and I mean, let's not even talk about the games coming up for the Masters. There's a whole bunch of people. We've talked about how many people are going to be involved just from a competition standpoint.
Right.
Let's look at MFC in general. You talk about trying to find ways to draw people in and to really not only attract business opportunities for them, but entertain or not entertain, but good opportunities for the competitors, the judges, the viewers, everything. Man, you talk about, so we had over 500 athletes last year at MFC.
Yep.
And not only that, I was really, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Ron, I know you were competing a lot of the time. I was really impressed with how many people were there to watch.
Yeah.
I think when you start talking about Masters, you start also talking about families. Like, yeah, there's groups that they're not group, but like me, like I just travel by myself, but I mean, man, you go and you bring your kids, you bring your wife, or, it's a family trip or something like that. Like there's a lot of people that were actually there. And I feel like it was worth it for the vendors and worthwhile for people that are looking for that.
Yes, I think very much so. I mean, just being in the back with the athlete area, and I know, we try to be kind of strict about who's allowed in the back there, but you had coaches back there. You had a couple family members that were the Sherpas. I always joke around. It's like Jess says she's the professional Sherpa when I'm competing because she carries my backpack and she goes, here, you need to eat this and you need to do this, and don't forget I made an appointment for you to go get work done, and whatever it is. Those people have to be really close to the people that they're helping because they're the ones that kind of like run the ball. I mean, I know I'm so absent-minded normally that I would forget 90% of that. So honestly, my buddy Robbie Davis, when he was my teammate, having him there helped a lot because he was like kind of keeping me on board and stuff too. So you know,
That's the best part. Whenever we organize these things, I have to not only message Ron, but I also have to message Jess
oh, for
just to
sure.
make sure
Just
that.
Jess. Only Jess. That's the best thing. The
Wait, it's
best thing
funny.
is just go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the best thing is that I mean, it's like our calendar is set. Like she has the calendar, and it's our family calendar, and I can look in there. I can see days I work, she works. Heck, it even shows our paydays and doctor's appointments, this, that, and the other. And I'll call, and she goes, "Did you look at the calendar? Just look at the calendar. Don't ask me. Just look at the calendar." So,
Well,
yeah. So Jess
here's
is
the
the
deal.
one.
So speaking of the calendar, we
Yes.
are a week away from the Open. All right,
Yes.
and so obviously
Yes.
we have a ton to talk about with that. You guys know,
Yes.
you guys know, if you know me and you know Ron, and especially if you know me and Ron,
Mhm.
we almost need like a signal person in the background to be like, hey, all right, it's time to like move on and start talking
Yeah.
about things, because this will
Yeah.
be a 4 hour long podcast.
Oh, it
It'll
will be,
be,
especially with the Open coming so soon.
oh
So
yeah, man,
yeah.
this will become the Pat McAfee show. We'll just stay on here all afternoon. Yeah, whatever.
Just start keep
Um,
talking.
that's right. So, but with the Open coming, okay. So we're gonna get into numbers here in a minute. But I wanted
Ooh,
to
okay.
ask you, Ron, and
Yes.
I didn't really prepare you for this because I've been thinking about it. I don't know if you have. Okay, so
It's okay.
obviously Dave Castro comes out. He's kind of alluded to the fact that
Yeah,
things are going to look a little bit different this Open.
yeah.
Now, obviously, man, we continue to go through changes with things, and I think change is good as long as we're trying to progress forward. But they said two things. One, he sort of said two things. He kind of said things in the way Dave Castro says things. He says them and he doesn't really say them. And
Right.
so the first thing, obviously, is that it's going to look a little bit different. And I think what he's referring to is I think it's going to, in my opinion, I think it's going to kind of drop back to the way things used to look before there were tape boxes and before there was needing, a whole bunch of space for a whole lot of different things because of things that gym owners run into of, hey, how do I run a class while I've got people wanting to do the Open? How do I get things through when I'm, I mean, let's face it, gyms that are, I would say there's probably more gyms that have limited space than gyms that just have all kinds of space all over the place.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing for them, for those gyms, and I know like our gym is a very nice sized gym. The one that I work out at, Thoroughbred in Wellington, Florida. It's a great gym, but what they've done too is they've designated specific times. So you're not just going to come in now. That's not true because they allowed for me last year and a couple other people that were like, contenders to go to the games,
Yeah.
To come in at open gym hours, and they sectioned off an area and said, okay, we're going to be doing this here. So you guys can work out over here and these guys will be over here. But they also had Friday night lights. They had Saturday night lights. They did things where we could actually participate as a group together, which adds that like competitive nature to what you're doing as well within the gym itself, and brings a lot of camaraderie and those type of things. So I think it's very possible to do even as a smaller gym, but I totally get what you're saying. And that would be interesting if he does that. Cause I don't know if you remember a few years ago, they actually had who was that? I think it was BKG and somebody else, or do it in a garage. Do you remember they did somebody's garage gym?
Dan Bailey.
Dan Bailey.
BKG.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the Total Bar double under and clean workout. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so that you're right. And I think they're going to start trying to move back towards that. And here's the second reason why, because this is the second thing he said. He talked about the score sheet being more simple. And so I really get to think about it. And so my first response was, well, it's simple enough. Like I can figure it out. Like it makes sense to me, but I think that's the problem. Dude, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years. Right. And so everything's going to make sense to me. The things that don't make sense to me probably don't make sense to anybody. And so I got to tell you, I think what's going to happen is I think we're going to see, I don't want to say step back. Step back is the wrong term, but I think we're going to see a movement back towards what looks like super duper traditional CrossFit. It's going to be, a score sheet that, it's going to be double unders, pull-ups, and thrusters. And it's going to go 21, 21, 21, 15, 15, 15, 9, 9, 9. And then when you check all those boxes, you're done. Like there's not tiebreakers. There's not this and this and this. And I think, I think it's to try and bring it back to where there's not this division between what competitive CrossFit looks like and CrossFit in your classes looks like. I think they're trying to mold those two things again, which honestly I think is a good thing. Before I started getting kind of burnt out on competing a little bit, like I was in classes, and yeah, I was going really hard, and I was dying, but I was in classes, and I think maybe that's a little bit what they're trying to do. And I think the fact that they're letting more people into the quarterfinals in lots of different levels, I think is opening that up, because I think what it does is it removes this, they used to talk about this, and I think it still is, but where they programmed the entire season. And so just because you saw something in the open, like the open affected the CrossFit Games, because they were saying, okay, if we've seen this in the open, now obviously with quarters and semis and games, like you're going to see those things again, but it was a part of the whole process. I think what's going to happen now is you're going to see the 3 workouts from the open, and then maybe kind of reset again. We're going to do 3 things that are very vital, but because there's so many people that are going to move on, like we just kind of want to see who is it that's functional, who is it that's doing the movements right, who is it, and then the quarters are going to be allow those people. Now we're really going to start it, and now you're going to see the boxing, now you're going to see the running, now you're going to see the rope, all that stuff.
I think it really should be like that, and I think there was a couple of years where they kind of parted ways from that, and they maybe had even some movements that were more difficult in the open for your average athlete. And I think what they want to do is, like you were saying, they're trying to bring continuity to everything, but also participation, right? If you make it so that you're not going to have ring muscle ups in the very first workout of the open, you're going to probably get a lot more participation. I would even say if they wrangled it down to like just having like bar muscle ups, or even, the basics. Like last year, remember they started out with that sprint friggin' burpee bar touch. You had to jump up. That was brutal, but that was such a good workout because it was basic.
That was awesome.
I hated it.
Yeah, because you're 6'9". I'm 5'2". Like it was absolutely amazing.
That thing just crushed me. And no matter how many times I tried to redo it, and it's funny because I've seen all these things again, I've kind of been going back and watching more stuff, and they're talking about running versus walking fast, where there's all different types of things. But anyway, those movements are the important, like you said, very simple movements. If you have too many of the difficult movements that people are going to get stuck on and not be able to continue, they're going to start going, why should I even do this? So I'll just do the workouts and not sign up.
Yeah.
And that sign up is critical for, I think, and we're both in agreement, financial ability for them to do more things as they carry on through the season, and the things that they're doing and the things they're offering to the open athletes, and to hopefully to the masters athletes as we continue through. So, yeah.
Well, it's kind of it's interesting how this functions, but it's kind of the not so dirty little secret of the world is that things cost money, and quality things cost money. And so it's like, when you start looking, I mean, and this is the thing, like I'm a CrossFit nerd, but like I don't do as much media, I think, as other people. And so like if somebody has come out and actually broken down exactly how much CrossFit uses for each thing, I haven't seen it. And so I'm not trying to call myself that expert.
Yeah. However, I'd love to see those numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but the deal is it's like, like I don't know what those numbers are used for. And that's fine. Like, here's the thing. I'm okay with that. If this is it's largely a private business. I mean, it's not like a public firm. It's not a government thing. And so like the concept of transparency is a weird thing when it comes to something that we all love and are involved in, but is technically owned by someone else. Yeah. But like I want a good stream. Now, we don't want to get into that with Masters and how that went last year. But when they show up in Fort Worth, there's going to be a lot of people there. I'm going to be there. Yeah. But also for the people that aren't there, they want a good product that they can watch. Like it doesn't just need to be someone, it doesn't need to be like on my phone with a GoPro type quality. Yeah. I want a production, and I want, and I want, when I show up, I want it to be glitzy and glamorous and shiny. And the same thing. So I say Fort Worth, the same thing when I show up to Birmingham. I fully intend on being in Birmingham. Yep. And I want there to be a good stream, and I want there to be a hoopla. And I just, and so that's the thing is that money that goes there. Like, I'm great with that. And so it's interesting, little miniature segue here. So that means that the budget for the CrossFit Games for the Masters It's always
Mhm.
dude, isn't it weird? I'm still trying to figure out how to say all this, by the
Right.
way.
Yeah. No,
The
I know.
budget,
It feels weird having to separate them out.
yeah,
Number
the
one.
budget
Yeah.
for the CrossFit Games for the Masters is going to be determined by the quarterfinal signups.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. Have you heard? Do we know how much the quarterfinal signups are going to cost?
I have no idea. I,
Yeah.
I, I haven't heard, and I don't even know what percentage of that is going directly to the Masters. And then I know, so
Yeah.
they have the quarterfinals, and then there's the last one, right?
The semifinals, yeah.
The semifinals, and that I think that is like kind of pocketed for them specifically. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. It really will be, just because of sheer numbers that we have as Masters athletes. It would be nice if they could, kind of funnel off a little bit of the money from each stage of that to do what we would need to have done to put on a really good production for the Masters as well. I mean, I realize the younger guys, I mean, they're paying out a lot more. Their last place person earns more than, the first place person is the Masters, but that's a whole nother discussion. I'm not going to go there. But at the same time, I mean, it would be nice to be able to offer those things. And again, so you have people coming and volunteering rather than everything being for free and then getting a pair of shoes, be able to offer, whether it be food or a really great grab bag where they have good stuff and, things that they can. I know Rogue. And I spoke to a lot of people that did Rogue as like, whether they were judges, whether they were help or whatever, and they Rogue decks them out. They got like, all different kinds of stuff, which is great because that draws people there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
And I think, and it's certainly the way that it should function. So okay,
No,
so
I
you
agree.
said something. I think you and I have a different understanding. You were talking about it a percentage. From what I've understood from listening to people online, I think all the money from the all the money from the Masters quarterfinals goes towards the Masters games budget.
Okay.
So not just the semifinals, but the Masters. And I think I think I was seeing on Instagram. You guys will forgive me. Like we said, I'm old. I'm still trying to figure out all of our streaming capacity here. I think somebody had mentioned that the Gorders were $50 a person.
Okay, that's what in previous years. That's what they've been. They've usually gone from like 20 to 50.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe they were 75 or something like that. But
yeah,
again, so and you look at that number. If let's say they're taking the top, like they did in previous years, they're taking what, the top 10% is what it was.
I think it's 25 this time.
25%. So if you're looking at numbers, and I kind of, just because I was kind of geeking out a little bit before we started. And if we're looking at like sheer numbers, like the 35-39 division, that's like 21,000 people, 21,000 men, only men, and 16,000 women. So you're looking at, if it's 25% of that, you're looking at about 5,000? 5,000 individuals at $50 a pop. I mean, or if it's 50 or 75. So it's a decent amount. And again, that's one age division. If we were to go through and do all those numbers, it would be probably quite a bit more than that.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the deal. So right now, I was looking at it this morning, and we got a graphic we'll pull up in a minute. Say we're gonna pull up in a minute. Why don't we just pull it up? Well, no, because I'll ruin something. I'll ruin some things that we pulled up right now. Slow down, Ron. Slow down.
Okay.
So here's the deal. So right now, there's about 111,000 Masters signed up.
Yes.
And so let's just round it off to 100,000 to make the number simple. If 25% move on, and all 20, which we know it's not going to, but all 25% of the people that move on sign up for the quarterfinals, that's a $1.25 million budget just right now. We know that some of the numbers are going to roll in the last week, and really the last 2 weeks as people sign up. But so if everybody right now that would qualify for quarters signs up for quarters, it would be just over 1.25 million for the budget. And again, here's the deal. So my side of MFC is like, I don't deal with the budget. Other people tell me what I'm allowed to do, and then I do it. I don't know. I mean, I would assume that 1.25 could probably go quick when you're talking about a lot of people, especially, and I don't know about anything. I don't know about costs. I don't know about what they're paying for, if they're having their clothing
when
provided.
You're talking about sheer numbers of people, I want you to think about one thing. I mean, again, I don't know how, if it's being completely donated or whatever it is, the clothing process, but
Mhm.
I know with MFC, we ended up paying wholesale cost for the clothing that we handed out to everybody. And even at that wholesale cost, we were still like well over like $35,000 for 500 people,
Yeah,
right? And you're
absolutely.
talking now 40 people per division
Yeah.
up to what age? I think they're up to
Well,
my
I
age
mean,
division, 55, 59, I think, and
yeah,
then they
I
cut
think
it
it's that,
back.
and then it drops down to 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still, that's a lot of people,
Mhm.
that you're outfitting.
Yeah.
And then you have to start thinking about like,
We also got to pay for the
gosh,
venue. I
everything.
mean,
Yeah.
and
I
if the
don't know
venue
what
that,
kind of deal they get.
yeah,
I wish I had more insider information. I really do. Cause it's like, it's almost like, agonizing to think about it and not have the answers, but imagine what you think the answers should be.
yeah,
It's kind of comical. On my
yeah.
end, it's
Oh yeah.
like I really want to
Oh
know and
yeah.
I really want to be able to have good information, but
Well,
it's
and isn't it
interesting. Yeah.
funny? Isn't it funny? Kind of as I mean, let's effectively. I mean, you're super experienced in this, but I mean, kind of as talking heads in this.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying not to speculate on things. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to happen, and I'm sure that people are listening, going, "Kyle, you speculated on these four things already," but
Right.
because we don't know. And
Right.
sometimes speculation comes across as so overly negative.
Yeah.
And then you say something that's overly negative, and then it's on the internet forever. And
Oh, for
that
sure. Yeah.
inevitably is going to show up again.
Listen,
Um,
I've got a gag order in place for my wife, and she's like, she has the sheep thing ready to like pull me out of the frame if I say something wrong. So,
she's got the crook. She's ready to yank you. Oh man,
but
but okay, so talking about those numbers though. Okay, so we're
yeah.
talking about the numbers and how many people.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. So I broke this down this morning. I took a look. We'll pull it up here.
Yeah.
And I thought this was an interesting breakdown. So this is the men, and this is last year versus this year. Now keep
Yeah.
in mind, there's still about 2 weeks worth of usable sign up time left. So there's this week, which is before the open. Well, I guess from now until Thursday, which is before the open. But then obviously you
Yeah.
can still sign up until you put your scores in for that first week. And
Yes.
so really, I bet you we're going to see a huge jump because you and I talked about this before we got on. There's some human nature breakdown in this as well about,
Yes.
when are people going to sign up? Are you one of those people that you as soon as it opens, like you're putting your name in there first? I think my second open, I tried to be
Yeah.
literally the very first person on the
Yeah.
leaderboard.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But or are you the guy that you're so experienced that you're like, yeah, whatever. Like I think that's kind of how I am right now. Like I'll do it,
Mhm.
and when I go to put in my score on Monday morning, and that's purely because I procrastinated, not because I tried to redo it and I'm getting the best score
Right.
possible. But then I'll sign up, and so we'll see
Yeah.
a huge jump. So this is not like an overly negative graphic, but it is showing kind of where the numbers are hanging out right now. With about, I'd say about a week and a half left.
Yeah.
The blue line, the dark blue line is last year's sign up. The light blue line is this year's sign up. And so
Yeah.
you can see there's a couple with the men in those early divisions, really up until about the 45 to 49, where there is a pretty significant gap.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
I
and
calculated that first number. That's about
uh-huh.
10,000 male athletes alone
Mhm.
that are not participating in that division this year.
Yeah,
So but that doesn't mean that some of those people may have been 39, they turned 40 and they kind
that's
of
right.
bump over to the next line.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, it's really hard because
Oh yeah.
we're constantly evolving. I know that's some of the things that I've heard, like even Jason Grubb say and stuff. It's like, we're all looking to get to that next age group because we're the young guy then.
Yeah.
And it's kind of odd because it's completely, it's the complete opposite of what the younger guys, they want to be young and healthy so that they can compete with the other guys. So we're kind of like in a unique situation being masters,
Mhm.
but it's interesting because there's, you start calculating at 10,000 people at $20 a pop, that's a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And that one division and just with the men.
Mhm.
So it's really, it creates an interesting thing. Is it maybe because it's a new year and everybody's kind of hanging back and going, I don't know if I'm going to do this year. Sure, I'll wait to
Mhm.
see how it goes. I'm I'm not on the bubble, but I approach it kind of like, Jason and probably any other Masters athlete, is that, yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant because I'm not sure what's going to be, but let's make it a really good turnout and let's try to have everybody there that needs to be there so that it'll be a really good turnout and we can
Oh
have
yeah.
a good positive thing for the Masters community itself.
Oh,
I'd
oh,
like to
absolutely.
see the numbers have been higher, but
Yeah.
again,
Well, but again,
only
we still have, like we said, we still have a week and a half, and it'd be interesting. I've never done a breakdown as the time has gone on. It'd be interesting to see what the percentage of signups in the last week alone are.
right.
It's got to be high. It's got to be high.
I don't know. Like you said, maybe let's even. I would love to see those numbers. We already have the base numbers, right? You have
Mhm.
the base numbers here. So
Oh
what
yeah.
we could do is literally like next
Oh yeah.
week. If we meet next week, we'll
Oh
calculate
yeah.
them again because that's going to be right before
Oh
when it
yeah.
starts on Friday next week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean that's the deal. Is they'll do the announcement on Thursday night, like they usually have,
Yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
then we'll do, and so then it'll be Friday. And so, oh no, we definitely got to, dude. We got to meet next week.
Oh,
Kidding
for
me?
sure.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
what?
going to be.
And oh, and I've got, okay. Here's the deal. Now I got to tease this. I got to tease it. I'm not going to say who it is because I'm not allowed to say who it is. Haha.
Okay.
See, I'm catching myself here. Oh, we got a guest next week. Oh, you guys are gonna love the guest next week. It's gonna be an
Awesome.
exciting guest, and
Very cool.
you'll understand one day. You'll understand next week why I can't tell you who it is this week. So it'll be exciting.
Awesome.
But so yeah, but we can take a look at the numbers next week. I'll have those. But so this is the men. Flip over to the women's. The women's, honestly, it looks kind of similar. Like if I
Yeah,
flip
it
back and
does.
forth between the men's and the women's graph, like it almost doesn't change. And so it's like I said, very similar. The 65 to plus and the 60-64, they're all about even. I would assume that they're probably pretty close to finish with their signups, but women in the 35-39, 40 to 44, and 45-49, maybe they're waiting. Maybe they decided they weren't going to. Maybe they have decided, but they're going to wind up changing their mind because you guys know how it goes when open season comes around. It's like, oh, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
And then, oh, why don't I just put in my score? And then, oh, why don't I just do the quarters? Oh, look, I qualified. Why don't I just do the semi? It's kind of one of these interesting snowballs where, I think when the announcement came out, it was, I don't know, for some people it was expected, for some people it was unexpected, for some people it was shocking, for some people it was exciting.
Yeah.
It's always funny how time tends to affect us.
Yeah.
But here, okay, so now here goes. So the next slide's an interesting one. This is usually the slide that winds up, quite frankly, let's face it, pissing all the Masters off.
Yeah.
Not for a negative reason, but you'll see why. So this is the slide of so this is the breakdown. So we got the breakdown once again. This year is in the light blue, last year is in the dark blue. And then we just have the totals. So obviously the men's totals were way behind, more than half, but way behind. Women are much closer.
Right.
But then when we look at, so Indy total involves Masters and Open and teens as well. I guess I want to make sure I include them.
Okay.
So you see that huge number. This year it's about 164,000 as when I looked. And last year it was over 300,000. So that's that's a lot of ground to make up. But then again, we are masters, so let's grumble about how lazy and procrastinating the 20 to 22-year-olds are.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, maybe it's part of their game. Maybe they're like waiting to the last minute. I know with the past couple of years when they've started doing the qualifier being a percentage of people going through, I can honestly tell you, it's like I waited for a lot of things. I would wait to put my scores in till the last. Or I'd maybe just put them in right away because I'm like, I don't care. All I have to do is make the top, 20%. So it's kind of interesting. There could be a little bit of that thought process. I don't know.
Well, or here's the deal. I understand right now you wish you looked like the guy in the picture, and so you're having a little crisis of confidence. Something tells me the guy in the picture probably didn't care when he put his score in because nobody was going to catch him anyway.
Well, I would like to think that, but at that time there was a lot of guys biting at my heels, and I was very, very, very like, it was planned. It was like my coaches at the time, I Duke Van Vliet and Jason. From Milford, we would hold on to my scores until like literally the last chance. If I began to see where my score had dropped a little bit compared to the people that would put them on, but a lot of us were doing the same thing. You're kind of gaming it and putting your scores in to see where you end up. Just because we were narrowed down to 10 slots And it got really interesting because it's like, okay, the 20 slot's not bad. As
Yeah.
much as I don't want to sound, pompous in saying that, but 20 isn't bad. 20 is an easy number to hit into. But when you start getting down to 10, it really, you have to like kind of be strategic, because there could be one guy that go, I'll redo that because I didn't push hard enough, and end up getting a better score and knocking you right out. Because it's most of the time it's just small numbers, unless you have like a Kevin Kester or something like that in there, and he's going to freaking blow everybody out of the water and have ridiculous scores. But those are the outliers. You're going to have, for the most part, I think, even like last year, I'll kind of preface to last year. Sorry. Somebody decided they're going to mow lawns here. So, so last year I was really close. And at the time of, oh shoot, is this our guys doing it? At the time of the game, sorry, I'm like all like,
you're good.
That's I'm squirreled, bro.
That's all right, brother. We both are.
At the time of doing the workouts and stuff like that, I was like, I think by the last workout, I was in 4th position, right? I was in number 4. And then I decided to do something really stupid, and we were trying to game the last work I was going to do, which was the box jump workout. And as I started to do that, my buddy and I were going back and forth, and I was like, I read it straight off the paper, and it said step downs. And for some reason, I thought it said step up, step down, whatever. And we did the step up, step down, and I all I remember is getting a phone call, and they're going, Ron, what were you thinking, bro? And I was like, I messed that one up. And we were on our way to, at the time, going to get surgery for my wife. And it was like, I was a little upset, but then I'm like, you know what, God, you know what's up, and you know how things happen. So in the end, it ended up being the right thing for our family, but it was a bummer because one workout took me like right out of everything, out of contention. And then because I messed up on the handstand, which my gymnastics coach wasn't really happy with, that took me out of even contention, because at that point, I think I was in 11th place, and it pushed me even further out because the handstand one, somebody else came along and smashed it. So,
Yeah, I gotta say, it's funny. You brought it up, and I didn't say anything when you said it, but now that Lon has said it, Lon Allen, one of our very good friends, Lon said 20 is easy to get into if you're Ron Ortiz. You said that, 20, I love it, man, and that's the fun part of being around such amazing athletes like you and some of the other guys. Talking to Jason last week, and it's really funny being from this, because you guys, like, that's just your mindset. That's like, oh yeah, okay, you have that. In me, it's like, dude, hey man, when I cracked the top 200 as a 35-year-old, oh my gosh, that was man, that was amazing. And
we're fortunate. It's true, and it's kind of like a skewed thought process, and I feel bad now that I said it. I'm like, oh gosh,
don't feel bad,
like an asshole. But
no.
The biggest thing is that even during the time it was 20 athletes, I would still be like, I don't want to be anything less than the top 10.
Yeah,
I don't want to walk around with a number on my shorts that's higher than that number.
Yeah,
and so that was my challenge, is to never be above that 11. If you had the 11 on your pants instead of the 0, whatever it was. So 0 to 9 was acceptable. The 10 and 11 and up was like, I'm in the lower half. That sucks.
and you know what? And it's funny though, because that's, and I've talked about this in a lot of different sports. I do a lot of media for a lot of different sports, and it's just funny to see the way that the elite athletes and the way that their mindset tends to differ from it's not elite. I mean, really good athletes just differ from those who are not as elite. It just changes. Like, it's funny. Like you said about, you had to walk around with, a number 11 on your, like, hey, by the way, anybody who's upset with their number 11 CrossFit Games shorts, hey, shoot me a message. I'll give you my address. You can send every one of those to me. All right. All those 18 pairs of shorts that you got for that year, I'll take every one of them. So
that's too funny. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure there's a lot of CrossFit Masters Games athletes walking around with a size 38 waist, but if there are, I'll take them. All right.
I've thinned out my closet with all of my gear. Like, that's one of the blessings. So, again, my wife is amazing. She's so organized. But she's also gone, okay, how much of this stuff do you really need? You're
Yeah.
hanging on to a lot of this stuff for what reason? So I like have one container and it has every year wrapped up with, either the badge or whatever it is I got. The only thing I'm trying to find is the medals, because when I went through like having to move and do all that, I cannot locate my medals. I'm sure I'm put them somewhere safe, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a bummer because I don't have
Oh,
any
yeah.
of those. So,
Oh, goodness.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
man. Well, you probably, I mean, with all the medals that you have, I mean, Lord knows you probably had to rent out a bank vault, you know? I mean, my
I
goodness.
wish they were. Listen, I wish they were like real. I wish they were like tangible, because there'd be something there. But it's
be
kind of
sad.
funny because there's just having them, regardless of this first, second, or third, you're always excited. The first medal I ever got was a third place, and I was next to the guy that had the first place, and they put our medals on, and I didn't know it looked the same to me.
Yeah.
They put the gold one on me, and they gave him the bronze. And I couldn't tell the difference.
Never got off the podium so fast in your life. I better get out of here.
Yeah. But immediately he like came to me and goes, "Hey, I think you got my medal, bro." And I was like, "Oh,
You
shit."
got my medal.
Yeah. But it's
That's awesome.
and it's kind of comical, because then you have like the thought process. And again, I'm blessed to have any one of those. If I'm in the top 5 at the games, it's an amazing feat, because it's the top 5 in the world. And it's that whole Annie Sakamoto hug thing at the very first games, where it's like, man, okay, so you're upset to being third in the world, So we have to be very cautious. But during the time I spent a little bit of time up in Cookeville, I was working out with Rich and those guys quite a bit. And at one point I was like looking, and I was like, what the heck? His son has like a medal, and he's like tossing it around and it's like strung around, the dog holding it, running around. And I was like, Rich, that's like one of your medals, bro. And he goes, yeah, don't worry about it. That's the second place. So he immediately was like, I don't care about that one.
Hey, okay. Well, here you go. While we're talking, then let's do this.
Yeah.
All right. So, where's that? Hang on, I'm grabbing something.
Okay, go ahead. Sounds heavy.
Here we go. All right, ready? So while we're talking about medals, all right. So Ron, while we're talking about your CrossFit Games medals, and I'm sorry that they confused your third place in the world for first place one day. So let me show you my 2017 triple threat throwdown medal.
Oh, shoot.
All right, here we go. So it's a 10-pound weight. All right. The second place got a 5-pound weight, and the third place got a 2.5-pound weight. All right. So
awesome.
and it's written. If you can see it, it's written with a Sharpie right up here. There you go. 2017 triple threat throwdown. So that's my medal. I don't know if I wore it around my neck, I'd have to go to the chiropractor tomorrow.
I hope it was a local event, bro, because having to carry that thing back with you on the plane is like got to be ridiculous.
Oh yeah, dude. It was like 40 minutes away. Oh yeah. So here you go. Are you ready? Okay. So it's my turn to brag. Okay. So I always joke with my wife whenever we drive. It's in Hutto. All right. Hutto's in Texas. It's like 45 minutes away. And Hutto is in the direction of several places that we go frequently. And so every time we're driving through Tiffany gets car sick. And so she's always driving. Right. So I get to be the passenger princess. Well, when we're driving, all right, we're always driving south through Hutto. And so I'm sitting in the passenger side. And so Hutto is mainly over this way. And so we'll be driving. I'll be leaning over, and she's like, what are you looking? She never gets it. She goes, what are you looking at? I go, well, I keep looking for my statue. I won the triple threat throwdown twice in a row. I'm waiting for them to put my statue up over here. It's a worry. Awesome. There's 20 people in the division, and
awesome.
So it's oh yeah. So I figure while we're talking about all of your CrossFit Games accolades, we're gonna bring up the triple threat throwdown. Thank you to Hutto, Texas, for my dominance.
I love it, bro.
Oh yeah,
I love it. I didn't realize it was with a celebrity. So I mean, I'm waiting. Let me know when the statue comes up, because I'll go visit it.
Hey, it's gonna be a statue made of tinfoil, and it's gonna be about this big. So
awesome.
Okay.
I know. We've gone way off base. This is completely. You and I, especially, because we can do that. And next thing you know, we're like
right here. Last serious thing that I want to bring up. Okay, I've noticed a really interesting thing, and I don't know if it's maybe this happens anyway. I know that you can go down the list of the games and you can talk about all these sponsors, and you can bring up a lot of sponsors from a lot of different places. But I think it's interesting because at the CrossFit Games, and so we're talking, 2023 and before, when all of them were together, I know Reebok was international.
Mhm.
Reebok was it's a German company, and so, but then they go to, it seemed like a lot of them were American companies. It's interesting here. So the two companies, the two things that at least that I've seen big announcements about for the Masters Games are both European companies, and it's an interesting trend that I'm wondering if what's happening, because CrossFit has always been a fairly American brand, and I know it's worldwide. So anybody who's not watching in America, please, I'm not saying it's not for you, but I'm saying, it's the games have always been in America. It was started in America. I think the numbers are growing worldwide, but it's still largely an American pastime, if lack of a better word. And so it's interesting to see how maybe what's happening is these European companies that have had to grow in the midst of that community, that maybe they're having to reach out to the masters and having to really interact. Maybe this is their way to get on more of a worldwide stage, not national. I mean, they're already on national stages and international stages, but more of a worldwide recognized stage, with Raylan. Am I saying that right? It's the grip company. So
Yeah.
they're an official sponsor of the Masters Games. So you got Raylan signs on with them, and so they're a UK company, and then you've got Northern Spirit is the clothing provider, the clothing sponsor for the games, and Northern Spirit now. I've seen someone say that it was a Swedish company. I thought, just because of the wording on their website, they talk about free shipping to France and the rest of the UK, or the rest of Europe. I thought that meant that maybe it was a French company, but I don't know. I'm either way, it's a European company,
Yeah.
and it's
I think
interesting.
Yeah, I think it's imperative, and let me tell you why. What's happened over the last little bit with just the games in general, like you said, Reebok, very pretty large company, but some of the things that maybe people don't know that haven't been around very long. About the time they took on CrossFit, they lost their agreement with NFL.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So CrossFit was like a good kind of like transition for them into some other sport.
Mhm.
And I think that really held well for them. And then they were actually owned by Adidas as well, and so there was a lot of like good money in there and the good things happening. But I think just with the gravity of our financial situation here in the States and everything happening, a lot of that has been cut out, and there wasn't really that much participation for any part of CrossFit other than the very elite. And I think those smaller companies, or even those bigger companies that are European companies coming in, it gives them an opportunity to show their wares, number one, to a really good group of buying individuals, but at the same time, kind of introducing them to themselves to the States,
Yep.
because I guarantee coming home from the games, those masters athletes that are wearing it, or that were there looking and buying their stuff, are going to be talking about the quality of the product and this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
It's like it's the no kind of like I look at it that like the Noble effect. After Reebok stepped out and Noble stepped in, they exploded.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
exploded, and their quality of clothing is really good and everything like that, But they just blew up, and now what? They connected with the NFL now and all different kinds of things. So there's a process to, I think, what's important to the companies, and a
Mhm.
lot of that like has subsided here in the States, where a lot of these other countries have companies that are coming into CrossFit, that it's still a new sport there, and it's getting bigger. I mean, speaking to Scotty, Scotty is like obviously our connection with Australia, and I mean, they still run huge events, and we've talked to him a little bit, because it's like he's trying to make plans now to be at our event, and he's having to do these things because he has so many MC jobs and stuff that he's doing in Australia. And he said there's a constant flow. I don't know if you can hear the lawnmower; it's bothering me,
Nah, we're good,
um,
buddy.
there's it gives opportunity to those countries that have, or those companies that are from other countries that are maybe providing for their athletes now. Um, uh, Man, it just it's wide open for us as masters. And at this point, it's an easy fit because there's maybe not as much opportunity, right?
Yeah.
For those divisions. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I interrupted you. I don't remember if you remember your train of thought, but I was
You're
thinking,
fine.
and I was like, yeah, I'm just excited to see those companies come in because hopefully there be some kind of substantial like um, financial commitment too, where they can, instead of the purse being 10,000, it may be more.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
but we haven't heard
Well, and
anything about that yet either, have we?
and I think joining on, it shows a level of excitement, and so yeah, I mean that as they see growth, because I think this is one of the things, and it's important for us as masters and business people. Like you have to
Mhm.
look at things not just for how is it right now, but how is it if we look in 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future.
Yeah,
Where do we see growth? I mean, and because that's part of business is you have to grow with it. And
yeah.
if Raylan and listen, if anybody from Raylan's watching and I'm messing your name up, I'm so sorry. I'm from Texas. We say things the way we think they're said. But and Northern Spirit, they look at it and they say, hey, there's gonna be a lot of people at these events, and they recognize, we talk about it all the time. It's kind of like number one on talking point of
Mhm.
Masters CrossFit is the buying power of Masters. I mean, if they jumped in and they said, you know what, this is an opportunity, because okay, here's the deal. I'm actually really excited about Northern Spirit, because so I had this up, and me and Jason looked at this the other day, dude. This is some good looking clothes.
Yeah.
They got a nice taper to it. That's fantastic. That has listen. I don't know if this is true or not, but in my mind, that has a very European flair to it. Like that feels like a soccer kit, and I
Yeah,
love
it
that.
does. It really does.
Oh
It
yeah.
does the colors and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And so obviously it looks like they did the French throwdown, but I mean, great looking shirt. I don't know. I don't wear a lot of crop tops, so I'm not a
Yeah.
good judge of crop tops.
Yeah, it depends how hot it is.
Which,
And then,
dude, no
and
one wants to see me in a crop top.
what's the open athlete that he does the crop tops?
Oh, it's oh my gosh, Nick Matthew. Yeah, Nick
Yeah, Nick
Matthew.
Matthews. Yeah,
Listen,
he's into him. So
listen,
hey.
dude. Me and Nick Matthew have very different body shapes. Okay, buddy. Let's throw that out there. And then, but I'll tell you this. Okay, listen. If I look like this in this shirt, I will pay
Yeah.
so much money for this shirt.
Just
Like,
spread your
I
arms
mean,
out a little bit wider. It looks like
oh,
all you have to
dude.
do
I
is
mean,
walk around with
the lats, the taper. I mean, my goodness, dude. This is. But seriously though, like it's really cool because it's a great opportunity for exposure. I didn't know Northern Spirit existed.
Yeah.
And now, dude, I'm gonna show up to the games and I may be able to get a CrossFit Masters Games Northern Spirit shirt. Like I'm really excited
Yeah,
about
you
that.
never know.
You know
They're
what? And
taking
especially
40 this year,
and
bro.
here's the deal, man. If it makes me look like this, dude, I mean, like here's my bank account number. Like charge me whatever you want. So I don't know. It's just it's interesting. It's an interesting trend to see if that continues. If maybe the European companies see this as their opportunity, maybe to not have to pay some of the prices that you have to pay for the
young
and here
guys.
again, I'm still trying to figure out how to say all this because the
Yeah.
games for the Masters is still the games. But you're going to say the games for the individuals and the teams. I don't know.
Right.
The Fort Worth games, the Birmingham games. I'm not even trying to say
Right.
this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you
I agree. I
obviously your
agree.
sponsorship will be less. So
I hopefully not. And again, I just hope that we can somehow learn to tap into the things that are, I guess, kind of proprietary to what we do or who we are
yeah,
as masters. I've joked around about it, but it's like, hell, nobody's contacted ARP. Start contacting these companies that have a vested interest in who we are as masters athletes. And it doesn't
oh yeah,
necessarily have to be healthy. Granted, we want it to, but if we were to sit and talk to every single masters athlete and go, okay, what do you guys like to drink? Oh, we love bourbon. Okay, guess what? You have friggin' Johnny Walker or one of these other companies come. How much money do they have to spend, and what's their budget for that
oh
stuff?
yeah, oh yeah,
So
man.
there's opportunity, complete different opportunity for us than there is for the teens,
Yeah,
and different too because we as masters have life outside of working out, and a
mhm,
lot of the younger guys don't. You
yeah,
still have you do have some of the athletes that are starting to have kids and whatnot, but their life is surrounded and provided for by their sponsors that allow them to work out 24/7
yeah,
and
oh yeah,
rest. I always used to not really admire, but go, how is this possible, humanly possible? I would look at Whoop and look at Brooke Wells resting.
Yeah.
She always met 100% of the hours that she should be resting. And I'm like, I'm looking at mine, and some days what was it? Not your stress, but your like, what am I thinking? The body stress level was, I was at like 22, and like 24 is the highest you can go because lack of rest and working out for 4 hours and doing all this crazy stuff I was doing at the time. That pitcher, i.e. But that's like, I was trying to keep up and do that as a master's athlete, and it's realistically, it's almost impossible. And I think the closest we can come is probably a Jason Grubb, where he's now kind of formed his whole life around, now he's coaching and he's doing nutrition and he's doing all these other things and he's selling all kinds of products and this, that, and the other. But if you have a preset job and you already have something you're doing, it's really difficult to break off from that and go, yeah, I'm going to give up my pension and all these other things to start traveling it around and, have a podcast and do this stuff myself. It's like, it's almost impossible, I think.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So let me do this. Let me try and put what you said into a nice little ball. Cause you started here and you started going like this, and then you brought it back in real fast. Is we're talking about sponsorship stuff and hoping that some of the new and exciting companies that are coming in, that while the demands in terms of sponsorship dollars may not be as high as the individual games, that they're still high enough to create a possible prize purse that actually helps support and cover travel and cover training, cover food, because we've talked about it before, and it's a lot of money to go to Birmingham for 7 days, or if you're traveling from further, maybe longer, do all of the food, getting everything that is required. And so just trying to make it one trying to recoup money, but also trying to make it where people can provide for themselves in this and the professionalism that gives. Hey, are you ready for this? Okay, so we're gonna start wrapping up, but I had this idea. You said bourbon, and I was like, I have the greatest idea of all time. Okay, and so here you go.
Hold on,
so,
maybe don't tell me, and we'll use it for MFC.
Well, okay. Well, here's the deal. I'll say this. Look, we need to get here. Here's what we need. Okay. Could you imagine? So here you go. This is my media brain. All right. So you got Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has an incredibly popular podcast, and Joe Rogan's primary group that he reaches is kind of that 30 plus age group. Ready? Okay. So you do that. He has also pushed, and Buffalo Trace, when he started talking about Buffalo Trace, it blew up. You can't get it anymore because anytime it shows up on a shelf, it's gone, right? And it's delicious. It's amazing. Okay, here's the deal. Buffalo Trace shows up at the CrossFit Games, all right? And they're there with the masters. They had a CrossFit Games branded bottle. Ooh. Dude, everyone that even sort of thought they liked bourbon. Like this, it wouldn't even be people like, man, I love Buffalo Trace. I love bourbon. No, it would be people that are like, hey, I've drank alcohol. That looks awesome, right? Yeah. Like, they would sell that. Oh, it would be gone in a heartbeat. They'd make so much money. Everybody, dude. Hey, the of course, admittedly, it may work against the branding of fitness, but the Buffalo Trace CrossFit Games, dude, that would be the most popular booth out there.
You know what? I don't think it's far fetched because it follows along with who we are as masters athletes, and it's like. It's and kind of what Jason had talked about as well. It's like there has to be, you have to have a certain amount of downtime. You have to have that time where you're enjoying life, doing what you're doing. Your body. You should have coaches that understand what you need as a master's, and it's not going headlong into something. It's being very cautious, but also having the time to relax and enjoy life because. Granted, listen, I love to work out. I've been really much of a slacker the last, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And it's like, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with, like I said, with the Open for me. But at the same time, I know, sorry.
They are right outside your window.
Yeah, he's blowing right, like literally at my chili goat right now. But yeah. So to have balance, I guess,
Mhm.
is what it is. And does that mean that being healthy, you can't enjoy a glass of wine, or that you can't enjoy a glass of bourbon every once in a while? It's not you're going out and getting schlossed every single night, but at the same time, you're using that to enjoy, have your downtime, maybe even jump in the chili goat at night and then have a bourbon after, whatever it is. It's like, I think there's a balance, and unless there's an issue, in your
Yeah.
life where you
Oh yeah,
can't drink
absolutely.
anything, I would
Yeah.
say I
Yeah.
think it's genius idea. I really do. And that we haven't, as competitions, already headed into that is pretty amazing to me, because there's a lot of things as masters we enjoy outside of athletics,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
A lot of things that our families enjoy outside of athletics. And we were to bring those things into the realm of vendors at our
Yeah.
competitions, it would be amazing. And
Oh yeah.
they probably wouldn't be able to like travel with the bags. Oh my God, this guy's killing me. They wouldn't be able to travel with the bags of stuff that they would be carrying home.
Oh yeah,
And I
absolutely.
just think it's a smart thing. It
Yep.
really is.
Oh yeah.
Not why not make it um, why not make it something that's family friendly, and
Yeah.
also enjoyable for our side things that we enjoy doing. So
Mhm. Absolutely.
I think it's genius. I like it. Let's
Well,
call them Buffalo
let's
Trace.
call him.
Boom.
Let's call. Well,
Call them up.
here's the. You know what? It is funny. We could talk for another 2 hours. But
I
we
love
probably need to wrap it. Been about an hour and 5 minutes. Hey, so if you have joined us on Instagram Live, thank you so much. I saw some of your comments. We're going to get better at answering those. And
Where would they show up? Would they show up on the side over here, or
here's the
where?
problem is they didn't show up on here because I didn't have it set up where I could do that. So I was
Got it.
kind of going back and forth and trying to talk about them a little bit.
Yeah.
And
If
and
you do
so
that for next time, we can
oh
actually
yeah,
like kind of head
oh
them
heck
off.
yeah,
So you're talking, I'll head them off.
oh yeah,
But
man,
before we go, too, I wanted to point out I have my aerobic capacity
oh
shirt,
yeah,
and we had Chris Hinshaw at MFC last year. He came out for just the joy of being there for Masters athletes, and he's a dear friend of mine. I love him tremendously, and we look forward to having you back, Chris, if you're
oh
listening or
gosh,
if
yeah,
you're on there. But I can tell you right now, if you were to ask the amount of athletes, Masters athletes in the world, what programming they follow for their aerobic capacity or for their aerobic or endurance, I guarantee you Chris is like number one.
oh yeah,
And
easily,
he's an amazing person. He's just such a, yeah, and sorry for the plug. It sounds, but I was wearing it and I'm sitting here talking. I was like, I haven't talked about this once, but
yeah,
we're fortunate to have those kind of people participate with what we're doing because they believe in us as masters. And
yeah,
it'll be really interesting to see how everything's affected our game season, open season. So
yep,
we're going to meet next week and have another really good discussion, maybe after the announcement, before the
oh yeah.
announcement. Let's talk about it and see what
Got
you
to be
say.
after the announcement. Oh yeah, no, it'll
Yeah.
be oh yeah, baby. So
But I'll be meeting with Jason and those guys tonight about 7 o'clock. So it'll be fun to talk to them as well.
oh
But
yeah,
I love you,
make sure
Kyle.
yeah. Yeah, make sure you tune in and listen to Ron with Jason and Rick, man. That's gonna be absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, great plug for aerobic capacity. And here's a plug for the podcast. Hey, do me a favor, go back to September of last year. Listen to the podcast where Coach Henshaw and I talk about why I would be the first to be eaten in a zombie apocalypse.
I remember that
Guys,
one.
I'm not joking. And that was one of my favorite conversations of all time.
That's awesome.
But hey, guys, thanks so much. Really enjoyed this. Ron, always love talking to you, brother. So much fun. The internet is an amazing thing that allows us
Yes, it
to
is.
get a chance to do this. So
It's
hey
so
guys,
cool.
we're gonna wrap it up. Make sure you follow on YouTube. We'll put this up on YouTube soon. Make sure you follow on Apple or Spotify, wherever you are. Man, the more follows we get, the more that we're going to be able to kind of bring you some of the things that you want, be able to leverage some of those follows, leverage some of those numbers,
Yes.
man, with sponsors and everything. It's always just a numbers game. So would love for you to support us in that way. And guys, man, until next week, man, stay fit, keep enjoying life.
Love you guys. Take care.